Hey everyone, happy Tuesday. Here's a look at the current and upcoming weather conditions across the U.S. Looking at the current hazards and weather observations as of Tuesday, late afternoon, very active pattern, very typical for springtime. We're seeing a very amplified trough pattern, similar what's happening today to what happened Friday and Saturday in terms of severe weather across the central U.S. into the Midwest, as well as very strong winds and heavy wintry precipitation for a lot of the northwestern part of the US. So that's going to kind of play out over the next couple of days here. So we see a lot of wind and high wind watches and warnings across portions of the Northwest, winter weather advisories, winter storm warnings, even blizzard warnings for parts of the Olympics and Cascades of Washington. Fairly rare, maybe happens once a year. Another thing I've been talking about, very warm across parts of Southern California later this week with very strong ridging temperatures approaching low 90s for even coastline areas. So very warm for mid-March. And then the big news is this big area of low pressure and storm system that's in part bringing the wintry weather and winds in the Northwest is bringing up a lot of warm, moist air, severe weather. We see a lot of tornado watches across parts of Texas, extending up into Illinois, the north end of that area of low pressure. We're seeing wintry weather, some ice, freezing rain, and then heavy winter snow for parts of Wisconsin and Michigan. And if we look at the current storm prediction center outlooks right now, today we're actually looking at the convective outlook has a moderate risk of severe weather. So what this is mainly coming down to is due to an enhanced area of tornado potential and strong tornado potential over parts of Illinois and Indiana. Somewhat similar setup to what we saw last Friday with this just general large area of potential severe weather, all hazards, tornado, wind and hail, but the highest tornado potential is further north along and just south of the warm front. Actually, if we look at current radar right now, we do see we have a tornado watch up across Illinois. We have seen initial storm development, a few supercells along and south of the warm front. I think this one going to Chicago is a little bit more elevated at the moment. It's kind of north of the surface warm front, more severe potential with this cell or of the tornado threat right now, but we do see strong storms down into central Texas as well. We have an actual tornado warning down near Del Rio, north and east of Del Rio as well. So active severe weather day, flooding concerns too for areas that have already seen heavy rains across parts of the Midwest there. Severe weather then expands further eastward tomorrow, kind of to corridors of higher tornado potential. A few strong tornadoes for parts of the northeastern Ohio River Valley, and then down into the western Gulf states. Again, all hazards, wind and hail, particularly more wind than hail tomorrow as well. With this active pattern too, some fire risk, elevated fire weather conditions for the western parts of Texas, east Mexico today and tomorrow, continuing to Thursday for parts of Colorado as well. We could see continued fire weather concerns for the lee of the Rocky Mountains and the western high plains, where it continues to be pretty dry. We have very strong jet stream that's creating some pretty strong downsloping, breezy conditions for a broad swath of the lee of the Rocky Mountains. So that's kind of what we're seeing in terms of severe weather. Let's look at a higher level, broader what's going on. As I mentioned, we'd like to look at 500 millibars, the vorticity, sort of the rotation, to better diagnose where we have individual storm systems and what we have. Again, similar to what we saw late last week, this is a little bit more of a split flow pattern. It's kind of two individual troughs, but they're sort of fusing together. So a very deep trough. What this does is when we look at our wind speeds, we have very strong upper level and mid level and even down to lower level winds. This creates a lot of wind shear. It does a few things. It creates a lot of wind shear, which helps organize storms, but it's also creating a very broad area of low pressure that's driving and advecting a lot of moisture out of the Gulf farther north. So you have this very unstable, warm, moist air mass with strong wind shear. On top of that, it's creating this large geographic area of severe weather potential. So as this trough continues to sort of fuse together and emerge with this, that lifts off, area of low pressure will lift off the northeast. It's going to bring instability in the wind shear further east tomorrow. Winter storm conditions for, again, parts of the western Great Lakes. Behind sort of this first system, we're watching system 2 then dropping out of this very active polar jet later Thursday and into Friday. It's going to bring another round of winter precipitation. It's going to bring a round of heavy wind as well, and continued heavy precipitation, snow for a lot of the northwestern U.S. mountains. And then the third system we're kind of watching is this another trough coming out of the northern branch of the jet stream here that digs in pretty significantly. That should bring some pretty interesting weather conditions again into later this weekend into early next week. If we look at sort of what this looks like, how it manifests closer to the ground in terms of areas of low and high pressure and precipitation type, a couple things to call out. We see this broad area of low pressure developing ahead of the trough. We see the representation of storms and heavy rainfall, areas of freezing rain across parts of lower Michigan, a band of heavy snow across the western Great Lakes. That lifts off to the northeast. Most of the northeast and New England is going to tend to be more rain. As this lifts up the northeast, it's going to allow warmer air to move in. That's going to kind of reduce the heavy wintry precipitation potential for the northeast. As that moves out, we're watching system number 2. Again, this is sort of a cascade of storms really coming in from Washington out towards Montana, bringing almost continuous periods of heavy snow, high winds. Snow develops across the northern plains, a very intense area of low pressure for this Alberta Clipper, like very intense system. So it's going to have pretty strong winds. I think we're going to be talking about impacts, especially for travel, with this sort of compact area that has pretty heavy snow, pretty high winds across the Midwest as we head into later this week. That begins the weekend a little bit, but still bringing snow to the northeast. And then right on its heels, another storm system later this weekend into early next week. Potential severe weather with this as well as it taps into some of that Gulf moisture. We'll see where exactly this is going to set up. This could be a pretty big winter storm. Perhaps for areas like Chicago, a lot of uncertainty right now. But right now, it looks like the bigger snow potential will be across the Midwest and Great Lakes, with more warm air advecting into this, changing more to rain across parts of the Northeast. So right now, it looks like the Northeast is going to be getting more rain than winter precipitation with these next few systems. Pretty good shot of cold air behind that system as well. Luckily, it's short-lived. We'll also be hearing people talking about the GFS is doing something really wonky on the periphery of that storm system. It develops an area of low pressure with some, we'll call it quasi-tropical. It has sort of a warm core. We'll see what comes of that. I'm sure a lot of people will be claiming it's a hurricane. It's not. It has some tropical characteristics, but it's a little bit more exotropical in nature and its origin. I'm sure folks will be talking about that. The other thing, too, that I mentioned, we're seeing a similar pattern. We saw really strong winds across the lee of the northern Rockies this past weekend. We're going to continue to see as this in the lee of the second storm system coming in, really strong low-level winds. This is only, 1 or a couple miles above the ground. We're looking at 80 to 90 mile per hour winds across Washington and Montana. That's pretty anomalous. These are very strong winds in areas that are able to downslope and mix some of those winds to the ground. Are you going to be seeing wind gusts likely in excess of 50, 60 miles per hour? There's some mention of wind gusts potentially 90 to 100 miles per hour on the lee of the Rockies in Montana here. So it's not something that is unheard of, but it is going to be a pretty high-end wind event really Wednesday into Thursday across parts of the Northwest. And then we'll see kind of continued breezy conditions lingering through much of this week and into this weekend. Really then ridging built into next week, more of the active weather is going to stay across the northern part of the U.S. Cold briefly out east, remaining very warm out west. Again, very warm for parts of California later this week.